I never thought a microphone could change my life. Back in St. Petersburg, karaoke was something you did in a smoky bar once a year, usually after too much vodka and too many bad decisions. No one sang with joy. It was a dare, a joke, something to survive, not to enjoy. But that was before I went to the Philippines. My name is Alina, and a few years ago, I visited the Philippines with two of my best friends, Anastasia and Daria. We were all travel agents back then, burned out from cold winters and colder clients. Russia felt gray that year. The news was heavy, the streets were silent, and even our laughter had grown tired. We wanted warmth, something alive. It was Anastasia who suggested it. "Let's go somewhere sunny," she said. "Somewhere where people still smile." We looked at maps. Thailand? Too touristy. Bali? Too expensive. Then Daria said, "What about the Philippines?" I blinked. The Philippines? What's even there? She showed me her phone, a video of clear blue water, limestone cliffs, and people laughing around a long wooden table covered with food. They were singing off-key and loud, but full of joy. "That," she said, "is what's there." And so, on a random February morning, with snow still on our boots, we booked our tickets. Arriving in the island of smiles, from the moment the plane doors opened, I felt something different. The air was warm, thick, and smelled faintly of sea salt and mangoes. When we stepped out of the airport in Cebu, everything was alive. Jeepneys painted like carnival rides, music blasting from every direction, people laughing as if the entire world was in on the same joke. It was overwhelming at first. In Russia, strangers rarely smile. In the Philippines, everyone does. Taxi drivers asked where we were from. Vendors called us Miss Beautiful. Children waved like we were old friends. "Are they always this happy?" Anastasia whispered. Daria laughed. Maybe it's the heat, but I knew it wasn't. It was something else, something inside the people here. We checked into a small guest house run by a family who treated us like relatives from the moment we arrived. The mother, Tita Grace, cooked us breakfast. Garlic rice, fried egg, and something called longanisa, sweet, savory, addictive. Her husband, Tito Jun, greeted us every morning with a booming, "Good morning, ladies!" Even when we barely understood each other. The first few days felt like a dream. We went island hopping, swam in turquoise lagoons, and drank fresh coconut juice straight from the shell. But the magic wasn't just in the scenery, it was in the people. One night after dinner, Tita Grace brought out a microphone and said, "You sing." "Karaoke time," we froze. In Russia, karaoke meant embarrassment. But here, it was celebration. The music started. Dancing Queen by ABBA. She sang first, eyes closed, voice shaky but joyful. Then Tito Jun joined in, holding a beer like a microphone. The kids clapped, neighbors peeked through windows, and suddenly the whole street was singing. When she handed me the mic, I panicked. I don't sing," I stammered. She laughed. "Here, everyone sings?" And so I did. Badly. Horribly. But nobody laughed at me. They cheered. They sang along. And for the first time in my life, singing felt free. By the end of the night, my throat hurt from laughter. Daria sang "My Heart Will Go On." Anastasia belted out "Let It Go." The family clapped, offbeat but full of love. That night, under the warm Cebu sky, I understood something. Karaoke here wasn't about music. It was about connection. Finding joy in simple things, the following days only deepened that feeling. We visited local markets where vendors offered us lumpia and pancit with proud smiles. We tried Halo Halo, giggling as we mixed ice, beans, and purple ice cream. Everywhere we went, someone was humming, singing, or playing guitar. Music was like air. It surrounded you. I remember one afternoon, we walked along a narrow alley in Mactan, and from inside every small house, there was a different song playing. One was Careless Whisper, another Bakit Ngayon Ka Lang. Even people doing laundry were singing. It felt like the whole country had its own heartbeat, and it was set to music. We joined a small beach party that weekend. Locals invited us without hesitation. Someone passed around grilled fish, another brought out adobo, and before we knew it, we were dancing barefoot in the sand. No one cared who was rich or poor, tourist or local. Everyone shared food, laughter, and music. It reminded me how far we were from home. In Russia, life was about survival, pay bills, work hard, endure the cold. Here, life was about joy, about being alive together. That night, while looking at the bonfire glow, I whispered to Daria, "Do Do you think we could live like this back home? She smiled sadly. Maybe not the weather, but maybe the warmth. The promise to bring it back. When our trip was almost over, Tita Grace threw us a farewell dinner. The table was overflowing. Lechon, pancit, mango float, and rice that seemed endless. After we ate, the karaoke machine appeared again. "You sing before you go," she insisted. So we did. This time I sang with confidence, with laughter, with heart. When I finished, Tita Grace hugged me. "You sing with feeling now," she said. I told her, "It's because you taught me." Before we left, she packed us bags of dried mangoes and small jars of bagoong for memories. But what I really took home wasn't food. It was spirit. As our plane took off from Mactan Airport, I looked out the window at the islands below, glittering in the morning sun. I didn't cry, but I felt something heavy in my chest, a mix of gratitude and longing. Daria leaned over and said, "You know what?" "What?" "When I get home, I'm buying a karaoke machine." We laughed. But she wasn't joking. When we returned to St. Petersburg, the snow was waiting. The gray sky, the quiet streets, the same tired routine. But something inside us had changed. We brought the warmth back with us, the laughter, the songs, the flavors. We didn't know it then, but what began as a vacation would soon spark something no one in our town had ever seen before. Something that would turn a frozen Russian community into a little piece of the Philippines. When we came back to St. Petersburg, everything felt heavier. The streets were gray, the sky a sheet of frozen silver, and the people quiet as statues. It was like stepping out of a dream and back into a world that had forgotten how to breathe. But inside us, the Philippines was still alive. The laughter, the songs, the kindness, it all echoed in our memories. I could almost hear the soft buzz of the karaoke mic, the clinking of plates, and the sound of people singing out of tune without shame. I missed it like sunlight. One evening, about a week after we got back, Daria called me. "Alina," she said, "come over. I bought something." When I arrived, she opened her door with a grin. Look, there it was, a small karaoke set still in its box. On her table were plates of pancit she had tried to cook from YouTube tutorials and a bowl of rice that smelled faintly sweet. "You're serious?" I asked, laughing. She nodded. Completely. Tonight, we bring the Philippines to Russia. The beginning of something small. We called Anastasia and 2 other friends. When they arrived, the living room was glowing with Christmas lights, even though it was March. We had tea, some improvised adobo that tasted more like stew, and a lot of laughter. Daria plugged in the microphone and connected the machine to her old TV. The first song that appeared on screen was Dancing Queen. We looked at each other and burst out laughing. "Full circle," Anastasia said. "This is where it all started." So we sang. We didn't sound good, but it didn't matter. Something inside us unlocked again. Something warm and human that Russia's long winters had frozen for years. After the 3rd song, Daria raised her glass and said, "To the Philippines, for reminding us how to live." We clinked glasses, and I swear for a moment the snow outside didn't feel so cold. That night became our tradition. Every Saturday we'd gather, a small group of women singing in English, Tagalog, and broken Russian accents. We cooked Filipino food from recipes we found online, lumpia, sinigang, even halo halo, though ours used Russian berries instead of ube. It started as nostalgia, but it became a movement. Word begins to spread. A month later, our karaoke nights weren't so private anymore. A neighbor from the next apartment came by one evening, curious about the singing. She knocked on the door holding a cup of tea and said, "I thought it was a party. Can I join?" We said yes, of course. And that changed everything. Soon, every Saturday night, we had guests. Neighbors, co-workers, even a few curious men who brought snacks or vodka in exchange for a seat at the table. But what surprised everyone most wasn't the singing. It was the food. "What is this?" one man asked, pointing at the Golden Spring rolls. "Lumpia?" Daria said proudly. "Filipino food." He took a bite and froze. "This is amazing," we all laughed. He grabbed another one and said, "Why don't Russians make food like this?" From then on, people started asking for recipes. We shared what we learned: soy sauce instead of salt, sugar instead of sour cream, garlic for everything. Slowly, our Russian kitchen began to smell like Cebu. Even my mother, who had never liked foreign food, started to enjoy it. She told me one night, "It feels happy, like summer." I smiled. That's the point. The culture of warmth our gatherings grew. We moved from Daria's apartment to a small cafe owned by a friend who loved the idea of Filipino Saturdays. We hung up string lights, set up the karaoke, and printed a simple menu of the dishes we could cook. The first night we opened the doors, maybe 20 people came. By the third week, there were 50. By the second month, we had a waiting list. It wasn't just the food. It was the feeling. People came in tired, stiff, quiet, and left laughing. They sang, they clapped, they danced. And when someone sang badly, instead of being judged, everyone cheered, just like in the Philippines. That's what shocked people the most. Russians aren't used to that kind of easy encouragement. We grow up learning to hide mistakes, to keep emotions inside. But karaoke night made everyone feel free. One regular, an older man named Sergey, told me once, "In your place, when I sing, people laugh. Here, they clap. I think I've never been this happy." That sentence stayed with me because it wasn't just about music anymore. It was about giving people permission to feel joy again. The media takes notice. It started small. A few social media posts, some photos of Lumpia and Halo Halo on Instagram. Then one day, a local blogger came to film our karaoke night. She interviewed us, asking why Russian women were singing Filipino songs and serving foreign dishes in St. Petersburg. I told her the truth, because we went to the Philippines and found something we'd been missing all our lives: connection. When the video went viral, everything changed. People began messaging us from other cities, Moscow, Vladivostok, even Irkutsk, asking how to start their own karaoke nights. We created a Facebook group, Filipino Spirit in Russia. Within a week, hundreds joined. We started posting recipes, Tagalog phrases, even playlists of OPM songs. It was surreal. Russians learning how to sing anak and bakit pa. But beyond the novelty, something deeper was happening. People were tired of isolation. They wanted warmth, laughter, togetherness. The Filipino way of living, open, joyful, connected, was like medicine for Russian hearts. The taste of home that wasn't home one evening. We organized a fiesta night. We decorated the cafe with paper buntings, played Filipino pop music, and served adobo, pancit, and turon. Some locals brought their own food too, Russian salads, pies, and pickled vegetables. We mixed cultures freely, without rules. When we opened the doors, over 100 people came. I stood there watching them, singing, laughing, dancing, sharing food, and I felt something rise in my chest. For the first time, I wasn't just remembering the Philippines. I was living it again. An old woman approached me, holding a plate of lumpia. She said, "My husband hasn't smiled in years. Tonight he sang Top of the World. Thank you for this." I didn't know what to say. I just smiled, because deep down I knew it wasn't me. It was the spirit we had brought home from thousands of miles away, the warmth that couldn't be contained by borders or language. Changing the weather from the inside, by summer, our small cafe had turned into something more like a cultural hub. People came not just to sing, but to learn Tagalog, to cook Filipino dishes, to dance tinikling with broomsticks when we couldn't find bamboo. We even held English classes for kids, taught the same way our Filipino teachers once taught us, with laughter and kindness. The children loved it. Parents started saying, "You should open a real school." It felt like a dream. One night, as we cleaned up after a long event, Daria said quietly, "Do you think they know how much the Philippines changed us?" I looked around the room, at the lights, the smiles, the joy. "Maybe they don't," I said, "but they can feel it." And that was enough. Full circle months later, I received a message from Tita Grace, the woman who first handed me that karaoke mic in Cebu. She had seen our viral video online. She wrote, "Alina, I saw Russians singing OPM. You made me cry. The world is small, anak. I'm proud of you." I cried reading it because it hit me then. We weren't just students anymore. We had become carriers of a culture, ambassadors of joy. The Philippines had given us warmth when we needed it most. And now we were returning that warmth to our own people. It's funny how the smallest things can travel the farthest. A song, a plate of food, a simple act of kindness. They cross oceans, melt walls, and plant seeds where no one expects them. And from those seeds, something beautiful grows. In our case, it was a karaoke night that never seemed to end. Because every time we sang, the Philippines sang with us. By the time the first snow of winter blanketed Yekaterinburg, something extraordinary was happening. A quiet, joyful revolution that began with a karaoke mic and a few brave Russian women who had once fallen in love with the Philippines. What started as small gatherings in kitchens and basements was now spreading across cities like fire under ice. Filipino culture, its warmth, its laughter, its sense of bayanihan, was weaving itself into the fabric of Russian life. The Filipino restaurant in Moscow, Kain Tayo, was the spark. It became a magnet for curious locals, tourists, and returning Russians who had spent time in Southeast Asia. Lines would form outside on Friday nights, the cold air filled with the mixed aroma of adobo, garlic rice, and freshly fried lumpia. Inside, people crowded under twinkling fairy lights, while Tagalog pop music played softly through the speakers. The owners, a group of women who once visited Palawan and Cebu, made sure every corner felt like the Philippines. Wooden fans on the walls, woven baskets from Baguio, even the faint scent of calamansi lingering in the air. But what truly pulled people in wasn't just the food, it was the karaoke stage. At first, it was just a small corner with a microphone, but soon it became the heart of every night. Russians, who were often reserved in public, began to find their voices. The karaoke machine didn't care about accents or pitch and only joy. The moment someone sang Bakit pa, or anak with trembling Russian syllables, the crowd would cheer and clap. The spirit of Filipino pakikisama, that sense of togetherness, took over. Across town, schools began noticing this new cultural wave. Teachers from language institutes started using Tagalog words as examples during classes. Mabuhay became a greeting for special events. A high school teacher even organized a Philippine Week, where students learned to cook sinigang, watched Filipino films, and ended the week with a karaoke contest. The winning song, Tadhana, sung by a shy girl who had never been abroad but said, "When I sing in Tagalog, I feel happy." The movement didn't stop with the youth. Local TV stations started to take interest. One morning show featured a segment titled "The Philippines' Secret to Happiness," where a journalist visited these Filipino-style gatherings and interviewed the women behind them. "We just wanted to bring a piece of what we felt in the Philippines back home," one woman said. "In Russia, we often rush and worry. But in the Philippines, we learned how to slow down, to enjoy food, music, and people." Soon, social media picked up the trend. On TikTok and Instagram, hashtags like Why Karaoke Russia, Why Pinoy Vibes, and Mabuhay Moscow started trending. Videos showed Russians laughing over pancit, dancing to Otso Otso, or singing Akin Ka Na Lang with dramatic passion. Millions of views later, people began calling it the Filipino wave. In Kazan, another group of women opened a cultural cafe called Halo Halo House. They served traditional desserts in glass jars, layers of beans, shaved ice, purple ubi, and flan, to the amazement of locals who had never seen such vibrant colors in a dessert before. "It's like art," one customer exclaimed. But what made the cafe special were the weekly karaoke Sundays, where families, couples, and even elderly folks gathered to sing together. These gatherings created something Russia hadn't seen in decades: communities coming together not for politics, but for joy. In a country known for its stoicism, people began to laugh louder, smile more, and stay longer. Conversations that once ended with polite nods now ended with hugs. And everywhere, the sound of microphones and laughter echoed into the night. The Russian women who started it all often reminisced about their time in the Philippines. They remembered jeepneys decorated like rainbows, children playing barefoot in the streets, and the easy smiles of people who had little but gave everything. One woman, Elena, said, "When I was in Manila, a stranger shared her umbrella with me during a downpour. She didn't know my name, but she smiled and said, 'Welcome to my country.' That moment stayed with me. I wanted Russia to feel that kind of kindness." In time, Filipino expats living in Russia joined the movement, teaching Tagalog phrases, hosting cooking classes, and introducing the tinikling dance at local festivals. The blending of cultures became so natural that people forgot where one ended and the other began. Russian grandmothers learned how to rap lumpia. Filipino teachers began learning Russian folk songs. By spring, a major event was announced: the first Filipino-Russian Friendship Festival. It was held in a large park, decorated with both Philippine and Russian flags waving together under the clear sky. Booths lined the paths, adobo here, borscht there, and in between, tables selling handmade crafts from both countries. On stage, a Russian choir sang Dahil Sayo, with near-perfect pronunciation, while a Filipino band played a rock version of a Russian love song. The crowd was massive, their cheers echoing across the field. The climax of the event was, of course, karaoke. When the first notes of Let It Go played, everyone, Russians and Filipinos alike, joined in. Children danced, elders clapped, and laughter rolled across the park like waves. Cameras from news networks captured the scene, calling it a celebration of two worlds united by joy. Months later, documentaries and news articles highlighted how this unexpected friendship between two distant nations had blossomed. Cultural scholars wrote that the Filipino concept of joy amidst hardship had found a perfect counterpart in the Russian spirit of resilience through cold. Together, they created something new, a blend of warmth and strength that people called Mabuhay Russia. For the women who started it all, the transformation felt surreal. "We never planned for it to grow this big," said Alina, one of the pioneers. "We just wanted to share what made us happy." She looked around at the smiling faces, the mix of Russian and Filipino songs in the air, and added, "I think happiness is contagious. We caught it in the Philippines, and now the whole country has it too." As the festival lights dimmed and the crowd slowly dispersed, the karaoke stage remained lit. A young boy, no more than 10, climbed up shyly. He picked up the mic and in a soft voice began to sing Buwan. The audience quieted. His Russian accent curled around the Tagalog words, imperfect yet full of heart. When he finished, the applause was thunderous. Someone shouted, "Mabuhay!" Another yelled, "Spasibo!" The women stood there, tears in their eyes. Somewhere far away in a tropical island they once called their second home, the Philippines would have smiled. The warmth of its people had crossed oceans, melting even the hardest winters. And as the music faded into the night, one could say, the soul of the Philippines now lived in the heart of Russia. Not through diplomacy, nor trade, but through something simpler and far more powerful: song, food, and the shared joy of being human.